Welcome back, and thank you for attending day 2 of the second annual SIP Inclusion Conference, Inclusion from the Ground Up, Cultivating a Strong Foundation from Birth to Adulthood. My name is Kristen Brooks, Executive Director for the Supporting Inclusive Practices Project.
And I'm Kevin Schaefer, Director of Inclusive Practices from El Dorado County Office of Education.
Once again, our team would like to thank the Riverside and El Dorado County Offices of Education for their continued support of our project, as well as the California Department of Education Special Education Division for believing in this work and encouraging us to be innovative, inclusive, and impactful. A quick reminder that this year's conference platform offers a significant amount of embedded accessibility features you can customize to meet your individual needs. To access these features, please click on the blue icon to the top right of your screen. In addition, we have enabled closed captioning and have American Sign Language interpretation and Spanish translation available for you. With that, let's get to today's activities.
It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our Day 2 opening keynote speaker, Andretisha Fitzgerald. Andretisha is the author of Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning, Building Expressways to Success. She is a winner of the Benjamin Franklin Award from the Independent Book Publishers Association. She has served extensively in education as a teacher, curriculum specialist, administrator, and director. Andretisha founded Building Blocks of Brilliance educational consulting firm and has served as an international speaker, presenter, and facilitator who exhibits an audacious perseverance that calls organizations to evolve into inclusive, anti-racist, safe zones for all learners. Andretisha is a self-professed book nerd, Jeopardy enthusiast, and imagination expert who loves writing and dreaming out loud with her husband, 2 children, and like-minded educators who believe in academic success for all. Andretisha, you sound busy. Andretisha, the virtual stage is all yours.
Well, hello. All of a sudden, the printer that is next to me has decided to do something special. So please forgive any strange noises that are coming across. Good morning. My name is Andretisha Fitzgerald. Super excited to be here with you to discuss power and empowerment, honoring by decision and design. Kevin, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and to the SIP team, thank you for inviting me. Today, you can access the resources. We'll place that in the chat for you. And when you click on the link, it's going to take you to a page that looks like what's up on your screen. There's a QR code as well as a bit.ly, and then you can click on the interactive slides. When I designed with you in mind, I wanted to give you a way to capture what you're thinking, to build on the collective knowledge of those who are gathered together. And so you can use the Jamboard if you want to take notes that are collaborative and share those with others. If you would like to take notes of your own, I put it in a Google Doc so that you can just make a copy and work there, but also to extend your learning, because this conversation, this conference does not end today. It continues with our work as we move forward. And so I've designed with you in mind. And so there are a number of ways that you can participate in this session. You can totally just use your screen and the keyboard. You can use the interactive slides to communicate and type back. And so super excited. Go ahead and drop in the chat where you're watching from, maybe what your role is. We'd love to just hear from you as we journey together today. This is an invitation to personalize your learning environment. On the left is a picture that's really foggy, lots of contrast. You can't really tell what those shapes or what it is a picture of. On the right is a picture in full focus. You can see the shades of green in the grass, the beautiful clouds in the sky. I want you to consider the question, how focused am I for learning this morning? The picture on the left that's really foggy would be a 0. That means haven't had enough caffeine to have a conversation. My brain is unavailable even though my body is present. The picture on the right is fully focused and ready to go. So 0 to 5, how focused for learning are you? You can just type your number in the chat, or you can drop and drag on the interactive slides. I see some 3s and 4s there, a couple of 5s. All right. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, some dogs are stealing the focus there. I love it. What I'm going to ask you to do is, in the next 15 seconds, what would you need to do to personalize your learning environment, to zoom in for that focus? I want to give you a chance to personalize your learning environment. And so for some, they'll need to turn their phones off. For others, they need to turn it on and up. For some, they may need to stretch and grab some water. Others may need to decide to take the presentation in standing rather than sitting. I want you to decide what you can do to increase your focus for these next few minutes that we have together. So take 15 seconds to personalize your learning environment, and then we'll jump back in. I'll count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you all for being here today. I loved learning about who you are, who's watching in the chat. My name is Andretisha Fitzgerald, again, founder of Building Blocks of Brilliance educational consulting firm, author of Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning. And it always boggles my mind when I say this, but I've been in education for over 20 years. And I told you a little bit about my professional background, but I wanted to share a little bit about my personal background. The picture that you see on your screen on the left is me sitting next to my kindergarten teacher. Here's a fun fact about Lydia Harris. She was also my mom's kindergarten teacher. And what I loved about Mrs. Harris is that she mined for the gem of brilliance that she believed lived in each one of us. It didn't matter what we had gone through or what happened. She always would try to find out what we learned, what we knew, what we could do, what we were ready to show. Every single day of our kindergarten year, and she went on to become the principal of the school. So I spent 9 years with Mrs. Harris. But our kindergarten year, she began to have us to say a pledge each day. And that pledge started like this: I will seek the goals of brotherhood. I will stand for what is right from now until Judgment Day. And she had us to pump our fist in the air and say, right on. I felt her 70s influence in my 80s kindergarten classroom. And there is a picture of me on the right at the end of my kindergarten year, where I felt so full of confidence. I felt like I could navigate any academic setting. And so with that confidence, I want to share with you that my goal, our time together, is for every student to feel that academic confidence, that even if I don't know, I've got tools and skills to find out with what I do know. And so I'm going to propose to you 3 building block goals, and I'm asking you to decide which one is most salient to you, which one connects most deeply with what you want to learn today. Number 1 is to define power and honor. Number 2 is to evaluate power-filled choices and the implications of power on design. And number 3 is to co-create a community that uses power to honor. Go ahead and type in the chat which one resonates most with you. I see a 3. I see a couple of 3s and some 2s there. Thank you so much. Keep those coming in. A goal is not a learning goal until you and I have a place to agree. So thank you for choosing one of those, and we'll come back to them at the end. This session is broken down into 4 sections. And as I present to you, I'm going to just peel back the veil a bit to share with you some of the decisions that I've made as I've designed for this time together. There is a dancer that will appear in some of the slides, and the dancer will be a metaphor. So as we're gearing up for a run, I want you to think about these 4 areas. We'll stop at each of these 4. The 4 stops give you a way to check back in if something pulls your focus away, but the brain also decreases the anxiety when we simply know what is going to happen next. So consider in your classroom design, just giving an agenda or naming or numbering the sections. It lets every learner know how far you've come and how far you have to go. And so we will have 4 stops today: finding power, the problem of power, recognizing power, and we will stop at honor and power as our last stop. And so there's a dancer on the screen that is on one foot, balancing and stretching her other foot right behind her head. She's holding one foot and holding the other arm out to the side for balance. Where is there power in this pose? Is there a power shift? Where is there honor? I would like you to consider those same 3 questions as I share a story with you. When I was in the 5th grade, my teacher was teaching a lesson on Roman numerals. And I'm going to give you a confession that even today, Roman numerals still provide a bit of a challenge for me. And so he was teaching this lesson. I knew I didn't understand. He called my name, even though I did not raise my hand. I felt that panic. Has anyone ever felt that way? The sweat started, the lump in my throat. He demanded an answer. I gave him one, and it was incorrect. There was this moment that felt like an eternity, even though it was only a few seconds. He closed the math book. He walked up close to me and he said, "Get all of your things and move." He moved my desk to the back of the room away from every student. He said, "You are not smart enough to sit here." And I thought about myself, that kindergarten self that had the confidence. And I tried with the best of my ability to muster up the dignity to walk across that classroom, but it was too late. The little tears had started to form in the corners of my eye. And as I walked to the back of the classroom, I heard what he said, but in my heart and in my mind, it resonated as, "You are not good enough. You are not enough." And so my kindergarten teacher, who had become principal, got on the PA system and said, "5th grade, come on down and take your class picture." And here I am, just moments after one of the biggest academic humiliations of my lifetime. What I noticed is that my smile looks like the smile of everyone else. That when I checked in with some of my classmates years later, that some of them didn't even remember that incident. But for me, it changed who I was. It changed everything. In that moment, I decided I wasn't going to raise my hand. If I was unsure, I would try my best to hide it, that I would melt into the academic fiber. There was a moment of shame that my teacher probably moved on past, but for me, it remained. I want you to think about the power that each of us has as an educator. And I'm going to start with a definition of power, and then we'll revisit that story in just a moment. On your screen, there is a magnifying glass that highlights a pattern on a blue piece of paper as we define power. And so the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines power as the ability to act or produce an effect. And in Universal Design for Learning, which is a framework that takes into account 30 years of brain research on how humans learn, one of the strategies is to highlight the information that's important. And so while Merriam-Webster's dictionary does have 4 definitions of power, I want to call your attention into the ability to act or produce an effect. The ability to act or produce an effect. Every educator has the ability to act. Every educator has the ability to produce an effect. And that means that every educator has power. I wanted to bring it in just a little bit more. And so I'm going to offer you a definition, and I'm inviting you also to craft your own definition of power, and you can type those in the chat. I would like to offer this as a definition for us today. When awareness, when what we know or what we think we know meets a decision that we make for or about our students, that is where there is power. So this awareness meets a decision that we make for or about our students. That is power. Well, here's the issue. There is a problem with power, and there is a universal symbol for power that's on your screen with some lightning bolts behind it. It's the one that's used on most of the electronic devices, but there's a problem with power. According to Business Insider, there was some research done, and it showed that now the title that they used for the article I thought was a bit dramatic. It says power causes brain damage. And so clicks and likes, that title was a little dramatic, but basically the tenets of the article said that powerful positions actually change the brain. And so when we are in positions where we make decisions for or about others on a regular basis, we become more impulsive, less risk aware, less able to see points of view of others. And I think about my 5th grade teacher who moved my seat, made a comment, and moved on to the next lesson. I think that I have more grace for him when I think about decisions that I've made for or about others, when I've given a direction inadvertently, when I hadn't considered how what I said from my lips would touch the ears, the minds, and hearts of those that I serve. And so those of us in powerful positions, every decision we make, every ability to produce an effect, every action has someone that it's meeting on the other side. And the more we make decisions for others, the more impulsive and less risk aware and less able to see points of view of others we are. And so we have to be mindful. Being less able to see the points of view of others leads to a reliance on stereotypes. And in the picture, there's a dancer who is in a push-up position on one knee with the other foot raised in the air. And yes, it is a position of strength. And yes, it is a position that requires balance. But if in this lower position, I am making decisions for people that I can't see fully, that I can't hear or receive from fully, then I am relying on what I think I know about them to make decisions. Power plus limited vision equals stereotype threat. And when we create this stereotype threat refers to the risk of confirming negative stereotypes about an individual's racial, ethnic, gender, or cultural group, which can create high cognitive load and reduce academic focus and performance. When you can't see me and you don't know me and you make decisions for or about me, it creates an atmosphere that robs me of cognitive resources that could be used for learning. But I'm trying to figure out whether you believe that I am capable. This risk and this threat brings us to a moment of pause, a moment of honesty. Whose voice has your power invited? Whose voice has your power dismissed? We can only invite the voices of others by decision and by design. Take about 30 seconds just to reflect, and you can place in the chat connections, moments of takeaway. Just take about 30 seconds to reflect. I'll turn my voice off, and then we'll jump back in. Thank you for taking those moments to reflect. This is just a minute where I'll just talk about the design of the presentation. I know that the keynote time is short and there are times where we race through, but every brain is different. Some brains need time to type and make sense of it. Some brains just need a moment of silence to process. And I wanted to weave in both opportunities for you today. And so there are pictures words, and metaphors that are here to help this content bend toward you where you are, as we hope we do with our learners. That takes us to stop number 3, recognizing power. There are 7 doors on your screen, but only one door is illuminated and the pathway is carpeted toward it. And so as we think about where we recognize power, where are we emphasizing comfort? Where are we only opening one door? Once we are aware of where we're using our power to produce an effect, our power to act, then we can think about how we can design and make decisions to impact all of our learners. Lisa Delpit wrote an article in 1988, and I wish that this article was no longer relevant, but it still echoes in the hearts and the minds of the work that we do as we move to advance equity. It was written in 1988, but it felt like it was written in 2023. I read it often just to revisit these issues of power. And she says that there are codes or rules that create this culture of power, and that culture of power is enacted in learning spaces. I wrote a book called Anti-Racism and Universal Design for Learning, and I talk about how educators with our power can shift from a culture of power to a culture of honor, a culture of care, a culture that is only created by decision and by design. And so honor is acknowledging the intent and actions of abolishing the limitations of the power structure at hand. And so I want to give you some examples of what that means, what that looks like in our everyday actions, those actions where we don't consider the risk, where we may not think about the implications. But I want you to think about the practice of communicating shared expectations. In a classroom that is a culture of power, students walk in, we say, hey, here's the way it's done here. This is what happens when you don't follow those directions, and this is how it will go. That is a culture of power. A culture of honor sounds like this. There are things that I will need in order to teach. There are things that each of you need in order to learn. How can we co-create expectations that hold each of us inter-accountable one to another? Do you hear the difference between a culture of power and a culture of honor? In a culture of power, there are rules of the culture of those who have the power that govern the learning community. In a culture of honor, each member of the learning community is supported and empowered with the structures, supports, and choices that are available. Inviting members of the learning community into positions of power, authority, and decision-making, even if that means taking myself as the facilitator of learning out. So what does that mean? What does that look like in action? I'm going to walk through just a few of these places where we can, by decision and design, insert honor. Seating choices, not just where you sit in the classroom, but we have to have different kinds of seats for different body types, for different adaptabilities, and maybe even before learners come into our classroom as we're thinking ahead to next year, sending a picture of the space and the different seating options so that if there's anxiety about where to sit, if there's a need for focus and attention, that there is a variety of seating choices available to our learners. They can govern their best outcome by asking, did my seating choice make a difference for me today? What did I learn about myself as a learner? In the online environment, with camera options, I don't just mean simply cameras on and cameras off, but are we honoring the choices and the preferences and the learning needs of our students by empowering them with information about Zoom filters, or maybe blurring the background, honoring the space that they're in and treating ourselves as guests in that space, more than camera options on and off, but how we show up in the space for our learning. With participation, is there only one way to participate? Or are there multiple ways where we invite the voices to the table? And so using voice where people can raise their hand or chime in, but also having some electronic options, maybe using Slido or Answer Garden, or simply allowing text or chat in answers. Also using Post-it notes or stickies to invite the voice. Also normalizing assistive technology in a number of ways. And so participation is honoring each learner in a way that they can share their voice, in a way that honors them. And extension activities, when we think about homework, we have to recognize that every learner spends their time in school and then there's time at home. If we are sending home work, then we should be mindful that families have to come around this homework. I don't know about you, I've got 2 young people who live here with me. We've never spent an evening of bliss around a timed multiplication worksheet. There has not been a time where we had to read the passage and answer those comprehension questions where we learned so much about each other. But when we structure our extension activities to reach home, to tap into those cultural funds of knowledge. I sent home a pre-reading activity. I was getting ready to teach Romeo and Juliet. And so the activity was simply to ask 3 adults, they can live in your home, they can be in school, ask 3 adults, do you believe in love at first sight and why? Bring the data in. When I got to school the next morning, there was a parent at my door. He said, I need to have a word with you about this homework. And I thought to myself, oh no, how did this go wrong? He said, I didn't want to send my answer. I wanted to bring my answer. Now, this was February. This is a parent who I had never met at a parent-teacher conference, who had not come into any other activity, who found this homework assignment so engaging that he came into the classroom. He asked if he could share this story with the students. Now, his son was in my first period class. And so he shared the story when he met his son's mom, who was his wife, for the first time. He knew within moments that she was the one. Now, he said that it was the legs and the smile that confirmed it. He knew she was the one. I looked over to my student and noticed that his face was so surprised, but he was also mortified, a little bit embarrassed. He had never heard this story before. And it flipped the switch on how I see homework. Is homework building that bridge from home to school, placing the families in the position of expert, giving them a chance to show what they know, to share and connect powerfully to the content? This is honor in action. I'm not simply asking you to regurgitate a lesson with your family that they weren't there for, but you were. But I'm asking the families to connect powerfully, to share stories, to invite recipes, to be yourself authentically and find a place to bring that back into the classroom. Will we honor? Will we use our power to honor? The last point on power and honor is that those with power are least aware or least willing to acknowledge its existence. And so today, in this moment, I want to dismiss the misnomer that educators are powerless. Each of us has power, and every learner that we serve has power. Will we structure our classrooms to invite their power in? Honor creates opportunities for members of the learning community to make powerful decisions that govern their best possible outcome. What does that look like? That learners get to choose the assignments that they invest their time in, that there's flexibility in the how we approach, or that there are multiple ways that learners can show us what they know and demonstrate their mastery. If it is one size fits all for the way we teach and one size fits all for the way they can show us what they know, then we are using our power to oppress those who so desperately need us to use our power for liberation. Are we communicating with stakeholders in a way that is honoring? That means that our newsletters have an audio option or a video option, or an option to change it to the language that best meets your needs, that we're using pictures and words and videos and maybe metaphors and inviting the voice of the students. that conferences will have options and flexibility, and meetings would as well. This is honor in action. And this is the wheel of power and privilege that was created by Sylvia Duckworth. Schools historically and traditionally have centered on those in that power center, those who are white, with families with a post-secondary education, who are able-bodied, heterosexual, neurotypical, with robust mental health, who are slim, whose families own property, who are rich, speak English, cisgendered men. And if we are to use our power to honor every learner, to give choices, and to build curriculum that bends toward them, then we have to be intentional with our power to reach for those identities that have been historically and traditionally marginalized by giving every learner opportunities to be the picture of success to themselves and to us. For every identity to show up in our scholarship, in our curriculum, in the books that we read, for every learner to be able to influence how they decide to attempt an assignment or where they invest their time, for every family to see themselves as exactly who we've designed for every identity to feel like I belong here because they do. Where will we use our power? We must practice for equity. We have to be mindful of whose voice we treasure and whose voice we trample. We have to use those multiple means of engagement by recruiting what you are interested in belongs here. Those multiple means of representation, meaning that there is not just one way to learn, but there are many ways of learning that will show up in my teaching, and many ways for you to show me what you know that will show up in how we assess together. Practicing for equity means being mindful of who has been historically and traditionally marginalized and reaching for them with instruction, with every decision that we make, with every design that we employ. Power plus limited vision creates that stereotype threat. Power plus prejudging who is in front of us and what they can do is where racism and ableism infect our curricular decision-making. But when we use power and honor together, we honor each individual. By every decision and every design, we receive the feedback, whether it's formal or informal, whether it's in behavior or output failure, what students are pushing away gives us information. We honor them with the power that they have, what they bring into the room, and the power that we have to act or produce an effect. Then and only then, we create community. And that takes us to our final stop: honor and power. Power can be dangerous if we don't understand each decision and each design that we are using to reach for those who we serve. And so as we close for today, our final stretch, there's a dancer on a screen that is stretching in that cool down moment. Our message in every decision that we make, we have to communicate this over and over again. You, the learner, are important. You are more important than the systems we serve. You are more important than my personal preferences. You are more important than the way the content is packaged. And I want to learn. I'm willing to learn about you to help you reach your life goals, not just the content goals. I will honor you with instruction that includes you and respects the power that you bring to the learning community. I will honor you. And so as we close for today, and we think about each of the decisions that we have to make and the designs that reflect those decisions and those decisions that make up systems of people, these systems that serve our students. I want to end with this video from the 1992 Olympics. Every learner comes to us with a goal in mind, very similar to these runners on screen. Every learner has a destination, they have a dream, they have a goal that they want to accomplish. And when they're in that school setting, they can see others around them who are running the race as well. Inevitably, every learner will have a moment of defeat, a moment of agony, a moment that crushes their dreams, a moment where they may decide, I just need a minute, a moment where they can see everyone else pressing toward their own mark while they are on the sideline. But when those runners, when our learners make a decision, I'm going to get up, when they come into our classrooms each day, regardless of what they've experienced, regardless of the defeat that they communicate to us or not, when they have these moments of injury, I wonder if we, us who are gathered here today, will be like this one who ran from a crowd of thousands onto the field and said, you have a goal, and I know that you won't get there the way that you planned. I see that you're in agony. I recognize the hurt, but you have a goal that you want to accomplish, and I am here to help you. I can't carry you to the finish line, but what I will do is blast away at any barriers that threaten to keep you from accomplishing what it is that you want to accomplish. Today, I'm asking you, will you be that one, like Mr. Redmond, who's in this video, that will push away at the barriers, that will remind students of their dream, that will commit to walk with them by decision and design to see that they make it to the goal that they've chosen for themselves? Can we teach systems how to either help and support or move out of the way? Can we push back where there is racism and ableism? Can we push back on systems that are not designed to support those who even may lose sight of their goal? Can we remind every learner of their heart song when they forget the words? Today, I'm asking you to consider power and honor, to consider the ability to produce an effect, to take a moment to use your power to honor every learner that comes to us to reach their goal. Take a moment, reflect on your takeaways from today's session, take 1 minute of reflection, and we will close. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the gift of who you are. Thank you for gathering. Thank you.
We'll give it just a moment to reflect, and then we'll close out. Thank you so much, Andra-Tisha. You gave us much to consider and reflect on. A few quotes as folks are reflecting even more that I took down and wanted to share back for our participants to ensure that we keep this learning and reflection going beyond today. One is, when awareness meets decision, there is power. Being less able to see points of view leads to reliance on stereotypes. Whose voice has your power invited, and whose voice has your power dismissed? A culture of honor is greater than a culture of power. Transfer and shared power is critical for every learner to thrive. Power plus honor equals community. I can't carry you to the finish line, but I can blast away barriers in your way and commit to walk with you by decision and design. And lastly, help and support, or move out of the way. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your perspective, your experience. We are also grateful for your work to hearts, minds, and actions. Your partnership with our SIP team is greatly valued. And we so much look forward to your closing keynote with your youth panel discussion. And for everyone on the line, Andra-Tisha has a surprise guest helping to facilitate at the end, whom you will not want to miss. So modeling after Andra-Tisha, we have a few more stops today. First, we have a scheduled short break, so take care of your personal needs while listening to the jammin' live sounds of DJ B Diamond. The next stop is our first round of breakout sessions, followed by another break, and then a stop for a second round of breakouts. So during lunch, please remember to network with one another in the optional roundtable discussions. And our last stop is our closing keynote, again with Andra-Tisha, and a youth panel discussion. So be there to hear the voices of those we serve and are in partnership alongside. Thank you so much. Enjoy your break. Andra Tisha, you're amazing. Cannot wait to see you this afternoon.